So,
Hey, thank you very much for inviting me on this evening. It's a privilege to be here, mate.
hey, no problem, mate. It's a privilege to have you on, mate. Such a good story that you've got, and you're a good friend, and
Been good to me,
yeah,
mate. The Lord's been good to me, man.
great to be able to work together.
Hey, man. It's good seeing that impressive collection of books behind you, mate. Looks brilliant. I'm quite envious, actually. I don't seem to have anything behind me at the minute. But there looks like some good books in that collection, mate.
Mate, I've just got to, you might be envious, mate, but when I look at them, I just think, flipping, I've got some reading to do.
Fair enough. Fair enough. The life of a pastor, eh? Brilliant.
But yeah, no, leaders are readers, and I want to keep reading, I'll keep learning so that I can lead others and stuff. So, but yeah, praise God, mate. It's good to have you on board.
Very true.
Okay, let's start. My name is Stephen Smith, and I'm the lead minister of the Oxford Elam Church. And tonight is our third instalment of Stories with Stephen. Stories with Stephen is an exciting opportunity to hear real stories from real people about real events that led to true and lasting transformation and change in their lives. Whether you're searching for purpose and truth, or whether you'd just like to hear inspirational stories that give you strength and hope in life, this is a show certainly that you won't want to miss. I mean, we have lots of guest speakers lined up over the coming months. I'm really excited about some of the speakers we've got coming up, but I'm really excited particularly about tonight's, because tonight we have my good friend, Ashley Nixon, joining us on the show to share his incredible story. Ash has a colourful story, which I'm sure that he'll share with you himself. He's married to a wonderful wife called Maria, who I know as well. She's a lovely woman of God. And Ash is also a credentialed minister for the Elam Pentecostal churches. He's currently working at Victory Church on the leadership team there in Cumbran. And he also serves or works as a support worker at one of their rehabilitation centres for people with life-controlling problems, the addiction problems. And so Ash is really right in the middle of a really, really important and, fruitful ministry and role to life. He's doing a great, great work. We're really excited about tonight, and I hope you are too. If you have any questions during the show, then please drop them in the chat bar or in the comments, and we'll try to answer as many of them as we possibly can. If you're tuning in, maybe you might want to start a watch party to get as many people tuned into the show as possible so that we can get Ash's story out there and get the gospel message of Jesus Christ that transforms lives out there onto the internet so the gospel can go forth. Ash, it's great to have you on the show today. Please tell us your story, mate.
Yeah, mate, thank you for such an incredible introduction, mate. I mean, honestly, the honour and the privilege is mine. It really is. I can't believe I get to do what I do. Not only to have lived through what I've lived through, but then get to share that with other people. It's quite a privilege, to be honest with you. So let me kind of set the background, really. So a lot of people hear my story and they think, well, you must have come from some rough background. You wasn't raised properly. And you know what? I came from a good home. I wasn't, it wasn't a bad upbringing. I maybe not had a father growing up, but I had my mum and my nan at home. And as far as I knew, that was normal, until I was about 10 years old. And then my mum met my stepdad. Again, a nice guy, a loving guy, but it kind of disturbed things for me. It kind of set in a trajectory of change within my own heart, which kind of made me eventually becoming quite a disillusioned and angry young man. My family moved then from Coventry to Stourbridge. It's not very far away, but it meant me moving the other side of Birmingham, and the people had this strange accent, which I've now picked up myself. So I do apologise for those of you that are struggling to understand what I'm saying this evening. But I found myself basically in this new area. I didn't want to be there. I'd made my home in Coventry. I'd made my life there. And so now I'd found myself in Stourbridge, surrounded by new kids, starting secondary school. There's a new man in the house, and I kind of not understanding my place in the world anymore. They moved over to run a pub, to start their own business, to create this family business so they could be at home more. But what happened was this business just took up a lot of their time. And so for me, I became disillusioned, maybe fell through the cracks, as it were, angry and upset. And as you can imagine, that kind of kid at school attracts other kids of a similar nature. A lot of people often say that, you know what, I just got led astray by the wrong people. But I'm willing to admit that I was one of the wrong people. You know what I mean? I was very angry and frustrated, tall, ginger, big ears. I kind of stood out anyway. And so very quickly, I became the class clown, really, acted up in school, you know, and then smoking between the lessons in the break times, and, you know, skipping school and truanting and shoplifting from the school's little penny sweets and stuff like that. And, you know, all of this, it built this hype and this adrenaline and this excitement. And I'll be honest, I've looked back over my life and realized there was an attention deficit, and I was making up for that attention deficit with this reputation I was trying to build, really, which basically meant things kind of went real bad real quick. So by the time I was 13, I'd started smoking cannabis. I was drinking on the weekends, dabbling occasionally with ecstasy. By the time I was 16, I'd been expelled from school. I've been done for burglary, arson, criminal damage, theft, handling stolen goods. I mean, the list kind of went on and on. Constantly in and out of police stations. My mom had constantly been dragged into police stations as an appropriate adult for me. In and out of court, community orders, suspended sentences, and lots of community service, that kind of a thing. And I think I was just that disillusioned 10-year-old kid. I kind of didn't grow up from that point. I think it sounds quite embarrassing to say, but I think I was kind of trapped in this kid that didn't get his own way, basically. And it's quite a humbling thing to admit these days. But if I hadn't have gone through what I went through, I don't think I'd be where I am today. And so 16, I've been expelled from school. Had this ever-growing drug habit that needed to be fed. And a 16-year-old's not going to be earning a lot of money. And so I turned to drug dealing. I was going from house party to house party, and I knew people that were selling drugs. So I thought, well, why not? It's the easiest thing to do, right? Best way to fund my habit, best way to build that reputation that I wanted was to sell drugs. So I'd buy a certain amount and sell it on. And I got quite good at doing what I was doing. I was known in the local area. I was this little tearaway, this little rebel, basically. You know, the school couldn't do nothing to me. The police couldn't hurt me. My family couldn't hurt me. So what did I have to fear? I just vented my anger at the whole of the world, really. So by the time I'm 19, I'd got so good at selling drugs, doing what I was doing. I was selling most drugs in most of the nightclubs in my little town. And I had this reputation, and I had friends of mine that were selling drugs for me. And it was just part and parcel of life, you know, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was off my head taking drugs. Cocaine became my drug of choice. That was my kryptonite, as it were. That was my drug of choice. So I was, you know, this raving cokehead, you know, occasionally taking pills and dabbling in all kinds of other stuff. But when I was 19, that's when things really got quite bad for me. I started to get noticed by a real gang, proper thugs. You know, I was just a kid, scared little kid trying to be somebody that I wasn't really. And I started to get noticed by this real gang, and these guys were serious drug dealers. And I started running drugs for them. What it basically meant was that I no longer had to find my own customers, my own clients. I would just drive from A to B and pick something up or deliver something somewhere else. And the guys who I was sort of selling drugs for were buying from the likes of the Albanian mafia and selling to Hells Angels. I mean, these guys were serious thugs, you know what I mean? And we were buying between 1 and 2 kilos of cocaine a week. So a kilo of cocaine costs between 48 and 52,000 pounds. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of money involved, a lot of more status, a lot more reputation, but a lot more threat. I mean, the thought of being caught with that amount of drugs, I mean, the prison sentence would be quite lengthy, right? And so we had safe houses all over the local area. A safe house is a place where weapons were stored or drugs were stored, or a drug deal would go down. And this became my life, really. I'd be at a house party completely off my rocker. I'd get a phone call and say, you need to go and drop something somewhere else. And so then I would take the right mix of drugs to make myself feel kind of okay to get in my car and drive. You know, it seems like a crazy world, but that was my reality, really. Do you know what the thing is? I sit here now telling this story, and it blows my mind that I even thought that way. You know what I mean? It's so stupid, isn't it, to even think that way? But that's who I was, really. I remember a time when the guy who I was selling drugs for, he rung me up and said, look, I've been attacked by a rival gang. These youngsters had basically given him a kicking outside of a shop. And he said, look, we need to go and do something about it, really. They've took my reputation. We need to get this back. And so I found myself driving to a safe house, finding a 9mm pistol, making sure it was locked and loaded, prepared and ready to go. And I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I had this reputation, right? I had this status. I had to live up to being the man that I thought I was. And so I found myself filling my nose with as much cocaine as I possibly could, which was where I found my self-respect. It's where I found my confidence, right? It's what I found made me who I was. And I got into this car and we drove around for a couple of hours looking for these lads. And shamefully, I admit it, I'd have pulled the trigger. I'd have shot at these lads. I'd have aimed to kill. And it wasn't because I was a gangster. It wasn't because I was a thug. It was because I was trying to be somebody that I clearly wasn't. And I think whether you can relate to my story or not, I think we can all relate to that point. So many of us are wearing a mask, going through this world, trying to live up to some standard of expectation that either we've set for ourselves or somebody else has set for ourselves, whilst all the time inside we're that scared little kid when we lost our innocence, whenever that was, through whatever we lost it was. And this, my story might sound extreme, but it's not that extreme if you think about it in those kind of terms. I mean, a lot of people think that my story is like an extreme episode of Emmerdale or a film script, but I mean, even in Oxford, I'm pretty certain.
Mate, not Emmerdale, Eastenders at least. Not
Eastenders, yeah, is that the new one? Is that yeah? All right, Eastenders, and we'll go for Eastenders, yeah. But I mean, like, this is happening in the streets all the way around our country. It's rife, you know what I mean? It's not a movie script. It's not a soap opera. This is an epidemic. It's everywhere. Like, drugs are rife throughout our nation. So as you can imagine, I ended up in prison, right? Best place for me. It's exactly what I deserved. Eventually, I was done for ABH, which is like a violent assault, witness intimidation, and possession of drugs. I mean, before I ended up in prison, the police were closing in on us, and there was a lot of pressure put on the gang. We were slipping up, making mistakes. We'd become greedy. We'd moved into making our own ecstasy tablets. We were dabbling in selling heroin. I mean, we weren't content with what we had. We were greedy. I mean, like the nature of drug dealing is a greedy business, and so we just got careless and we got cocky and we got caught. So I ended up in prison. I got caught with like 3 grams of coke in the end, and that's what gave me a prison sentence. Right. So 3 grams of coke, for those that don't understand, is a very small, petty amount compared to what I was doing. And I was given 6 months and 14 days, which is nothing really. So I ended up back in prison. First prison I was in was Winton Dream in Birmingham. Did the same thing I did always, built my reputation, built my status, tried to put myself out there. Eventually learned how to smuggle drugs into prison, started to mix with the gangs in there. And that's kind of me set. Like, I was an idiot. I destroyed my life. And that was me hell-bent on who I was. I was going to make a mess of my life. And I had no power and control over that. I knew my life was a mess. I tried to fix myself multiple times, but all the time I found myself in the mess all over again. And so I found myself in Winton Dream. And before I knew it, I was being transferred to Walton at Liverpool. Now, I couldn't understand what was going on. I was supposed to be released early on tag, which is like an electronic device on your ankle. So I was supposed to get released early, but they sent me to this prison up in Walton. And anyway, as I got to Walton, I kind of thought, you know what, I'm being messed around here. I'm being knocked back. And that was the grace of God. And I didn't realize it, but God was working in the background. He was working in my life before I even knew it to bring me to a place where I could meet with him. And for some of your viewers, they might be watching this and it might be the darkest day that they've ever had in their life. But this could be God moving you to the right place. Right now, he could be calling out to you as he began to call out to me so that you might open your eyes and experience what true life is really all about. And so I found myself in Walton in Liverpool, again, building my reputation, building my status, getting into trouble with the gangs, and ended up in quite a serious, violent fight. This fight kind of kicked off. I ended up being, this Brummie lad that was causing trouble amongst all the lads from Liverpool and Manchester. And I got into trouble with this one gang in there, and they put a price on my head. And so I'm now in prison. As if that wasn't bad enough, I've now got this price placed on my head. And so when you're in prison, you've kind of got 24, 48 hours. I mean, you can look at Stephen's face. He knows how serious this kind of thing was. And so at that point, like, my life's in danger. I've thrown my life away. I've destroyed the life of my family. And as if I hadn't taken this opportunity to learn the lessons for myself, now my life's in danger in prison. And it was at this point that this guy came towards me who'd been transferred with me from my previous prison. He'd kind of been watching me, keeping an eye on me kind of thing. And he came to me and said, look, mate, I think you need God. And this is under the prisoner now, right? I'm in prison. And as a prisoner coming up to me, seeing the predicament I'm in, and he said, look, mate, I think you need God. And I laughed at the guy. I couldn't understand what I'm in prison. My life's in danger. And you're telling me about God. I mean, I had no God framework, no understanding of who God might be. My only understanding of God might have been like the Vicar of Dibley or Father Ted. or dare I say, Ned Flanders like The Simpsons, right? That was my understanding of Christianity. Like exactly, you're laughing. I mean, who wants to be Ned Flanders, right? Who wants to be anything like that? And I kind of brushed him off. But it troubled me. The next couple of days, and I was troubled by this God concept. I mean, what's this God? I mean, I never even paused to think about it. The next thing I know, a couple of days later, I'm walking down the corridor in the prison, and there's this sign-up sheet on the wall for chapel. All it is a piece of A4 piece of paper. It's on the wall, and basically you sign your name up, and a security guard will come and collect you from your cell and take you to a service. So anyway, there's this piece of A4 paper, and as I'm walking towards it, I'm starting to feel excited. I'm starting to feel almost like a rise of adrenaline. I'm sort of like, I mean, I hadn't taken any drugs, but here I was in prison, buzzing and getting excited about what I thought was just a piece of paper on the wall. And so as I've come towards it, I've read it, I've understood what it was, and I thought, it's not going to help me. And so I went to walk away. And as I went to walk away, I felt something tugging. It was like an urge. Like I can look back now, I've got words to kind of describe what was going on. But at the time, it was crazy. It really was. This thing was just pulling me. It was drawing me in. In the end, I thought, you know what? What's the worst that could happen, right? So I thought, well, let's grab a pen. Got myself a pen, and I signed my name up on this chapel sheet. And I promise you, mate, the sense of peace hit me that I never experienced in all my life. You know what I mean? My life was in danger in prison. I was a scumbag. I'm a gangster. I was an idiot, an absolute muppet. I was getting exactly what I deserved. But here I was in prison, feeling a sense of peace. And at that moment, I knew that actually there's going to be a way out. This isn't how my story ends. There's a way forward. And so, if I'm honest, mate, that's my story in a nutshell. I mean, like the story goes on and on from that point on. It took me a little while to grasp what that truly meant for me. I ended up going to chapel week in, week out, hearing about a God who loves me, a God who wants the very best for me. That prisoner gave me my first Bible, and I remember, like, I don't know how to pray. So I'm in my cell, like, God, I'm a bit of a mess. Like, my life's ruined. Like, but if you can help me, if you can get me out of this and restore my life, like, it's yours, man. Hallelujah. You know what I mean? Like, God, like, take my life, man. I'm a mess. Help me, please. Like, and that just began the journey, mate. After that, like, you know, I came out of prison, and yeah, I struggled with drugs for a while. I struggled with the reputation. I struggled with the gangs, but you know, I left prison unharmed and unhurt. Every time I came towards a situation whereby, like, the rival gang was there, an alarm would go off or a security guard would turn up, and I knew I was protected in prison. I knew that God was with me. Like, I could not deny it. I knew God's real, man. Like, it was bunk. I thought I was losing my mind at first. Like, God's real, and He cares, and He wants to help. Like, that for me, it blew my mind, mate. It really did, and He's been with me ever since. You know, I've been to Bible college. I've been to university. I'm a drug addict, an ex-offender who's got a first-class honours, a first-class degree. You know what I mean? It's crazy, isn't it? I'm married. I'm able to hold down a relationship. My wife's beautiful. She's out my league, mate. She's incredible. And now I'm working with kids in youth work. I'm helping them not to make the same mistakes that I've made. I'm working with guys in addiction recovery, helping them to recover from the like God's given me a new heart, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like, it's beautiful. And I can't help but get excited. You know, that, as soon as I say that bit about in prison where I met with God, that's it. Like I'm gone then. He's good, mate. He's a good God.
Oh, that's fantastic, Ash. That's fantastic. Do you know what? I can relate to so much of that. I mean, there's just so much in that as well. I mean, we're talking about identity. Do you know what I mean? How, you know, like, all of us have got some sort of identity we're trying to live up to. I mean, I can remember when I was committing street robberies and stuff, you know, I'd got lost in addiction, and the drugs and the crime, you know, it become who I was, my identity. I mean, I just love your story, mate. And you know, you're right. It takes a lot of confidence to come on a platform like this and basically just say, look, I were a coward inside. I was trying to be something I wasn't. I think that takes more courage to actually stand up and be honest like that, rather than trying to be something you're not. And if we're honest, that's the strength of what Jesus Christ gives us. He gives us the strength to be who we are and to live according to the truth. Do you know what my wife was saying this afternoon about you, Ash? She was like, you know what? I can imagine Ash being a gang member and a drug dealer and that. I says, because he can be quite pushy, can't he? She says,
bless her.
She says, I can imagine him. She says, yeah. I bet he could be like really, really bad, couldn't he?
God's good, mate. He's, like, if he can save me, mate, he can save anyone, man. He's good. But I think you had a point then, mate, about, like, we're always trying to project ourselves to be something we're not. And like you're saying about how it's quite brave that I've admitted that, but like on the other hand, like there's so much freedom in it.
Yeah.
Like there's so much freedom. Like, I can say like, actually, you know what? In my own strength, I'm a mess.
Yeah.
I ain't got to prove myself anymore. God knows all my faults, all my flaws, and all my failings. And for some reason, He loves me still anyway.
Yeah.
I'm accepted.
Brilliant.
Like by the King of Kings, you know what I mean? By Almighty, I'm accepted by God. That's crazy, mate.
Yeah.
It's so freeing.
Yeah, it is, mate. It is. Like, you know, Jesus Christ said Himself, the truth sets us free. The truth, whoever's watching us tonight, the truth can make you free. And it is, like Ash is saying, it's a fantastic thing to not have to hide behind masks or to try and live according to some sort of standard or some sort of identity you're projecting, but just to be content and free in being who God created you to be. Okay, Ash, I'm going to jump into some questions because I'm sure me and you could just chat forever. I mean, me and Ash are good friends. We did Bible college together. So this is just like a bit of a reunion, to be honest, which I always leave feeling encouraged. And, you know, I just feel excited, you know, because something that Ash carries gets onto me. And, you know, that's good. We need good friends in life, especially in days like this that we're living in right now. But Ash, tell us a little bit more. I want to know, when exactly was it when you suddenly realised that God existed? Or did you always know that God existed? Or did you always have a sense of that? But when was it? When was the moment when, like, that's it, it's a reality for me, and man, you know, and just tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. I suppose the question about did I always know God existed, I think the way I was living my life, I was God. You know what I mean? My life was about me.
Yeah.
The world around me was about me, and I didn't care who I hurt in the pursuit of me blessing me, basically. But I think that when that first person sort of mentioned the term God, it stirred things. Then I encountered God in prison, signing my name to a piece of paper, right, on a wall, which is bonkers in itself. Then I'm going to chapel, hearing about this. I think you have this realization of God. You suddenly come to realize God is real. Then constantly, over and over again, it's reaffirmed.
Yeah.
It's reaffirmed. Fresh encounters. Like He answers another prayer. You encounter Him in a completely different way. There's been, I mean, I'll really admit the Christian life's not a bed of roses. It has its ups and downs, just like anybody else. It's nice knowing that He's there. And there's been some of my times when I've really struggled, you know, and I felt broken and I felt alone. And you cry out to God, and in the moments that He blesses you with His presence, you're like, wow, it's like all over again. Like He's real, He's alive. Like, you know what I mean? And so I think for me, there is that sudden bam, one time moment whereby God, yes, God's real, I'm alive. But I think then after that, there's that ongoing, constantly, suddenlies again. Boom, I'm alive. Yes, God's real. And I think He keeps showing you who He is, doesn't it? We believe that God's a living being, right? He's a personal God. He's like me and you. He's real. You can have a conversation with Him. And for some reason, we as human beings can't even begin to grasp or fathom that there's a God who created absolutely everything. And yet, even though He's created all things and He's this powerful, almighty God, He wants to know you personally.
Come on. Yeah.
I mean, that's it. How do you get your head around that, really? It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so I find myself going through life, doing life, being this Christian, telling people about the Lord, and constantly having these suddenly moments where I realize, yeah, it's real, man. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's an exciting journey.
Tell our viewers a little bit, if I'm remembering right, tell our viewers about the first time you read the Bible in prison.
Oh, man. Right,
Yeah,
so like I'm giving
something I think you told me before. Go on, I thought that might be good to share. Go on.
Okay, I'm not sure this might be what you're on about. For me, the first time somebody gave me a Bible, like, it was that prisoner. He gave me my first Bible, and there's nobody in there to tell me how to read it. I thought it was a book in it. So I you know, just like any normal book. So like, for those of you who don't know, the Bible is basically 66 books in one. And the Jesus bit, the good news bit's right at the end, although it's also all the way through. But let's not get carried away. I thought it was a book, and so I started at the beginning. And I started to read through, and the beginning part is kind of dedicated to the Jewish understanding of God. And I'm getting to Leviticus thinking, how many sheep do I need to sacrifice to attain for my you know what I mean? The book's confusing, it really is. But I don't know if that's what you was on about, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought that was quite funny because, you know, and it's good to know, you know, for those who are like maybe wanting to know a bit more about Christianity, you know, don't be intimidated, you know, by the Bible. You know, don't feel silly when you're like taking a look at the Bible, you know. You know, like that. But the beautiful thing is, Ash, is that stuff didn't sort of turn you off. It didn't, like, you know, it didn't, you know, kind of like, you know, discourage you from wanting to know more. But you persisted with that, you know, because obviously, you know, you'd had an encounter, you'd had a touch from God, you'd experienced God, and you wanted to know, you wanted to like push through that stuff and get to know Him. And I think that's amazing. It really is. Okay, Ash, I got another question for you. Like, have you ever witnessed any miracles in your life? Have you ever seen God
Well,
do? Have you ever seen God do the impossible, or God perform miracles in your life, or through you even?
yeah. It's just trying to think which ones to share, mate. For me, God's shown Himself in monetary terms, like blessing me financially in ways that I can't even begin to imagine. So like, I've come out of this world of drug dealing, where you're making over £1,000 a week. If you bother trying or not, like money's just, it's surplus, right? To then kind of giving my life to the Lord, finding myself on benefits, nobody wanting to employ me because I'm an ex-con, loads of debt that I'd mounted up from the previous life, and how God basically brought me out of that to a place where by now, like me and my wife are preparing to buy our first home. You know what I mean? We're saving for our own home. So along the way, there's been lots of little miracles where God's provided, whether it's been through a car, whether it's been through all of the, from a car, which is quite a small thing compared to, the fees to go to Bible college. I was supernaturally provided with all of the fees I need to go to Bible college, and stuff like that is beautiful.
Yeah, we're all paying our loans off now, but Ash didn't have to.
Sorry, mate. The Lord blessed me. Like, basically, in a nutshell, God told me to go to Bible college. I went to Bible college, and I heard about all this debt I was supposed to get, but I didn't just pay my debts off. And so I said, God, what are you going to do? I mean, what am I supposed to do? And God said, just trust me and have faith, and I'll provide. And He did. 40 grand's worth of money over the next 3 years to pay for me to go to Bible. It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. But I think the best miracles are like you're out in the streets in Birmingham, and we used to go out and take the church out. We'd have a full band and dance teams and drama teams, and you preach the gospel, and being out on the streets telling people about Jesus, then knowing the presence of God's amongst you. We had this one time, this woman came and she was in a wheelchair, and no joke, this lady's in a wheelchair. Now afterwards I found out that she could walk, but she had some degenerative muscle disease, which meant that every fibre of her body hurt. Whenever she moved, she was in excruciating pain. And so she's there with her husband, and as we're worshipping, singing love songs to Jesus, as it were, telling the world how amazing He is, this woman gets out of a wheelchair, aided by her husband, and they start dancing around Victoria Square. I mean, this is the city centre of Birmingham, right? And this woman's dancing around, there's just pure joy on her face. She's overwhelmed by like crying and tears, and she's having this moment with her husband that she thought she'd never have again. Next thing I know, she's back in the wheelchair, and we're chatting to her and talking to her about what happened. She had no God framework. She never experienced God before. But at that moment, God enabled her to dance with her husband. I mean, that's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's beautiful, isn't it?
That's amazing, mate.
It's crazy.
Yeah. That is incredible. It really is. It reminds me a little bit of, Bradford Life, Abundant Life Church in Bradford. Like, they had a similar testimony of a song they wrote called Dance Again. And there was a lady who had MS, I think it was, and she was able to get up and dance on their Sunday mornings when they sang that song, which was an incredible testimony and story of how God gave her the strength and ability to dance when she was like pretty much paralysed, most of the time. I mean, I can even remember a story you told once about how God blessed you and gave you the money to go to Israel.
Yeah.
I always feel jealous of that because I want to go. I want to visit the Holy Land and go to Israel and go to Jerusalem, but I've not been able to yet, and it's not a cheap holiday. I wanted to go on a honeymoon there, but I thought, well, that's not really fair on life. But
he's a good guy, Like, literally, all that was, I was at church serving, so I've just basically thrown my life into this work. You know what I mean? Like, the life I had, it weren't worth living. I was a mess. Yeah. Like, so for me, it was easy. Jesus said, "Here's another way to live," and I was like, "Okay, cool." And I kind of went that way. So I'm at the church, just serving, waiting on tables, and there's another ministry that had come in, and they were basically doing like the Passover meal, which for those of you who don't know, that's it's kind of the Jewish version of Easter before Easter came, really. And so they're having this Passover meal, and the ministry team that are serving there, they do these trips to Israel. And so the next day in church on a Sunday, I'm walking past the ministry table, and they're chatting to me, and they said, "Oh, thanks for your help yesterday." I was like, "Oh no, it was a privilege. Thank you for letting me be part of it." And they said, "Well, before we came here, these 3 ladies came to us independently, and each of them gave us this sum of cash. And we added the money together, and it was the exact amount of money that was necessary to send somebody on an 18 to 30s, all expenses, 10-day trip to Israel. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, he goes, would you like to go? I was like, yeah, of course I'd love to go. And he goes, well, as you were serving yesterday, basically, I was just throwing myself into the life of the Lord, right? As you were serving yesterday, the Lord told us that he wants you to go. And I was blown away, you know what I mean? Like, so that's, like, it's crazy. Like, and this happened in that period where I was waiting to go to Bible college. So I'm waiting to go to Bible college to study the Bible about this land 2,000 miles away. And so that I'd understand it better, God sent me there for 10 days.
Yeah.
Like, all expenses paid. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm having to just, battle against envy now.
Yeah. Well, like I said before, yeah.
God is good, man. God's good. He's a good God. He blesses us. He gives us He gives us the desire of our hearts. But we have to be following him, though, don't we, Ash? That's the key in it. You were throwing yourself. You surrendered your life to Jesus, and you just wanted to serve him, didn't you? When we do that, God sees our heart, doesn't he? He sees our heart. He blesses us, man. So it's incredible, mate. It's incredible. I'm still trusting the Lord. I'm still trusting God that one day I'll get to go to Jerusalem and stand where Jesus stood. But yeah, Ash, tell us, has there been a cost to following Jesus? Has there been a cost to following Jesus? Have you gone through difficult times? Has your faith in Jesus Christ caused you any sort of problems in life or any sort of difficulties that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, there's definitely a cost. I think the easy answer is the cost is your life, right? A lot of people come to Jesus because they want something dealt with in their life, but Jesus is looking for followers. He's a leader, he's a king, you know what I mean? And he has this epic adventure of a lifetime for everybody who really throws into it, but there is a cost, and that is that my way is no longer sufficient. It wasn't sufficient in the first place, right? And so I go where I'm told to go, and I do what I'm told to do, right? Thankfully, the things he asked me to do and the places he asked me to go to are far better options than I would have planned for myself. However, in that, I want to just being humble with you guys now. The first time I saw my little boy walk, so I got a son, right? So I got my little boy from before I was a Christian. And the first time I saw him walk was on a prison visit. Okay, so that's like a scumbag, right? Obviously, after I've been saved and set free and God's done the work in my life, I can now be a father to my son. Yeah, so I missed his first birthday because I was in prison. I've never missed another one since because God saved me and set me free, right? But one of the personal costs for me is that my little boy lives in Stourbridge. I'm in South Wales now. So he's just over an hour and a half away. So I don't get to see him as often as I'd like to see him. But nonetheless, I'm a father to him, and I never would have been a father to him before. So I've not lost anything. That makes sense. Yeah. For some people, that sounds like a cost, but he's better off me being who I am now than who I was before, if that makes sense. Yeah. So there are little things like that. Obviously, the ministry doesn't pay. It's not a multi-million-pound job, is it, Stephen? But no. The benefits far outweigh. You know what I mean? Like what else would I do with my life, really?
Yeah.
Like God's shown himself to me. He's proved that he's real, and he's laid this path out in front of me. And yes, it's hard. It's tough at times.
Yeah.
There are moments of doubt where I think we all go through that in life, isn't there? Yeah. There are moments whereby things don't pan out the way that you'd expect them to. I think this last 12 months that we've all endured together has been very much that, hasn't it? People struggling and pushing on and trying to move forward and trying to make sense of the world. And so there are seasons like that, but knowing that he's there and knowing that his promises are true and they're alive and that I'm far better off now than I ever was before is something that keeps you going. And the cost really is insignificant compared to the rewards of following God.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like when you become a Christian, you've already said it ain't a bed of roses. And I mean, no. Even a bed of roses ain't very nice, is it? You get prickled and stuff, but they might look nice, but you get prickled and that. It's not nice. Yeah. But I mean, for me, personally, life's been tough since I've known Jesus. It's been bad. Some of it's been hard. It's been great. Like you say, there's like a paradox there. It's like life's even better, and every year you live as a Christian and following Jesus seems to get better and better. But it also comes with its difficulties as well. But I mean, I'd rather have one day going through real difficulty with God rather than my old life going through difficulty without him. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things, that we have a friend who sticks closer than a brother in Jesus. So yeah, absolutely, Ash. It's great. Life with God is always better than
Come
life
on.
without God. We've got a question here from Richard Kearns.
Yeah.
It states, Ash, if you could go back to biblical times and witness one of Jesus' miracles, which one would it be and why?
For me, this one's easy. It's my favourite story in the whole of the Gospels. I don't even have to think about this. But Jesus cleanses the leper. I
Okay.
love it. So it's right at the start of Mark's Gospel. It's a very simple story. This man with leprosy throws himself at Jesus' feet and just begs for mercy. And Jesus, in mercy, just touches him, completely heals him, and shows him this act of love. And it's just beautiful. It shows the real Jesus, like the intimate Jesus. Jesus didn't have to touch him, but he did, because he knew that this man needed an act of physical intimacy. Leprosy, this infectious skin disease, it meant that the people, they didn't have contact with the world. They didn't have contact with anyone. They were isolated and alone. And Jesus knew his heart. He knew what his heart needed. He knew what was going on the inside of him. I mean, we're all diseased in some way on the outside, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're all struggling with this thing called sin, right? But
Yeah.
Jesus knows what the heart needs. And the last little twist in the story, after Jesus touches this leper, Jesus' fame basically goes through the roof, and he can no longer enter a town openly, but he has to stay outside in desolate places. And the bit I love about that is that this leper should have been outside. This leper should have been in desolate places. This leper should have been socially isolated. But because of what Jesus did, Jesus took that on himself.
Yeah.
Jesus was now outside in lonely places. Jesus was struggling as the leper should. Like, Jesus not only touched him, not only loved him, not only poured out this act of love, not only healed him, but then took his punishment upon himself.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the Christian message, isn't it?
Amen.
That somebody else died in our place.
Yeah.
Jesus took the punishment. Like, I deserve death, right? I know that. I deserve to be punished for the way that I've lived my life. Right? I should. And if it wasn't for Jesus, I'd be dead now. I'd have died in prison. I'd have died after coming out. I'd be so riddled with drugs, I don't even know who I am. But I'm not. I'm alive, right? And I'm living a better life now.
Yeah.
But he died in my place. He suffered. And that's that gospel story for me with the leper. It has everything. There's so much in there.
That is fantastic. Yeah. Wow. What a God. You know,
Amen.
absolutely. I mean, even as well, just thinking about that, the Old Testament law, the law can only manage death and sin. But it's the gospel that eradicates it. It's the gospel that heals it, that gets rid of it. And that is who Jesus is. He was the one he was greater than the law, wasn't he? He was the one who came to not just manage our sin and death, but to conquer it and eradicate it through dying a bloody death on a cross and rising again. And that is the good news of the gospel message, as Ash has just said. I love that. And you're right, mate. You're right. Sin is the pandemic. Everyone's talking about COVID-19 as a really bad pandemic, and many people have died. But there's a pandemic that's even more serious, and it's sin, and it's sin that leads to death. Okay, mate. Well, I've got another question here as well from someone else. Are you in touch with anyone from your past, or do they know that how you've changed and why?
Yeah, I mean, especially in the early days, I was in touch with quite a lot of people. And every now and then, I still get a few of them. They'll message me and we'll chat for a period. And even members from the gang that I was part of, I've met up with them. I've chatted through life with them. A couple of them have been to church with me.
Wow.
And they've experienced, the life that I'm now living. They've not kind of took that decision for themselves yet, but I think they're on a journey. I get to be, a son to my mother now. I mean, that relationship's been restored. And my relationship with my nan. I mean, I put my nan through hell, you know what I mean? Like, my whole family really, and restoration's going on there as well. And so, yeah, not just with friends and family. I mean, my old area, everyone knows who I am now. They all know the change that's taken place in me. So, yeah, I suppose I am still in touch quite a bit. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I mean that must be interesting. Like meeting up with your old gang member mates and taking them to church and that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had a friend of mine. Like, I shouldn't joke away. He sat in church so nervous, thinking he was going to combust into a puff of smoke. And thankfully, he experienced church how I experienced it, as a place of peace, as a place of solitude, as a place of acceptance, as a place of love. And I remember the first time I went to church, I was terrified. All these perfect people. I can't fit in there. Yeah. But when you find the right church that kind of represents God right, you're just going to be loved and you're going to be accepted. So yeah.
Yeah, no, also, I mean, was there no pressure for you to like rejoin the gang or anything like that when you
I
reconnect?
think, yeah, when I first came out of prison, I mean, I encountered God, you know what I mean, like undeniably. And I had this thing called Bible and this thing called prayer and trying to work it all out. And there was this 10-month period where there was this tossing and turning between the two. You know, I was going out and taking drugs and getting into fights and coming home, reading my Bible and praying, going out and getting into trouble, coming home, reading my Bible and praying. But like I said, you know, those coincidences that took place in prison, they kind of took place after I came out of prison. The gang that I was involved in were caught in a £1.8 million drug bust. They were caught with weapons and all sorts of stuff, removed from the streets. And I found out my partner was having an affair with my best mate, and they were. It's like God's relentless, man. If he wants that, he's coming after you. Like, you know what I mean? It's like I know God was working in and around my life to basically. I found myself isolated and alone with nothing more than prayer and the Word of God. I mean, that prayer that I prayed in prison, God help me. I'm desperate. Please help. He honored that prayer.
Yeah,
Like he honored it, like, and he will honor it for all those who truly seek him. Like the Bible says, like if we draw near to him, he'll draw near to us, right?
yeah,
And it's not about my behavior. My behavior is I'm writ off. Like in my strength, I'm a broken individual who like doesn't deserve anything. So I have to depend on a God who loves me regardless, right? And he will pursue you regardless if you are real for him. You know what I mean? You
yeah,
cry out to him, like no matter what your darkest day might look like. You cry out to God, he's there. And you might be drawn back into the gangs. You might have these influences around you, but God will stay your path. Which is
yeah,
beautiful.
absolutely. Great stuff. And that really goes into our next question, really. I mean, what would be your word to those who were in a similar position to yourself? And you might have answered that a little bit, but maybe you might have something else that you'd say. Someone who was in your position, maybe they was in prison or addicted to drugs, or maybe they were caught up in the gang culture, and they want to know a little bit more, or maybe they don't. But what would be your word to someone who was in your shoes?
Um, I think first and foremost, they've got to recognize there's a problem. I deceived myself. I don't think I deceived those around me, but I deceived myself into thinking I was all right.
Yeah,
And I challenge anyone who's in addiction, anyone who's in that kind of gang life, or anything like the life I was living, to go and look at yourself in the mirror and truly ask yourself, is this what you want from life?
yeah,
Are you truly satisfied with who you are as a human being? Are you proud of yourself right now? And if the answer is no, cry out to God. Just right there in that moment, just cry out to God, and don't just leave it at that. Like find a Bible, like find a church that loves you,
yeah,
find a community of people who give a damn about you. I mean, I ended up in prison, right? And so, I got this big gang and I'm part of this crew. They didn't care about me in prison. Those people that you surround yourself with, that you think are part of your gang, part of your crew, they don't care about you. They don't. And so if you can't look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm proud of who I am as a human being, then you need help. And that help is so available if you ask for it, if you look for it in the right place. Go to Steve's church. Rock up, tell him that I'm lost, I'm broken, I need help. Yeah? Just
yeah.
reach out to whoever, wherever you're living, wherever you are, reach out. Just ask for that help that you need.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, no matter what you might have heard about the church, we love people of all walks of life, no matter who you are, no matter what problems you're facing in life, no matter what things you're struggling with. The church is here. That our doors are open wide, our arms are open wide for whoever you are, to support you and help you and just to love you with the love of God. And that's the same for Oxford Elam, and I'm sure it's the same for Victory Church in Cumbran, who do a fantastic work, in all they do to reach out to their local communities and really play a significant role in seeing lives changed, transformed, and restored with the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Okay, so Ash, some people say they don't really want to know who Jesus is. Nah, I'm not interested in religion. I'm not interested in this person named Jesus. Don't think it's relevant to me. What would be your word to them, mate?
Wow. Wow. I think I know how that feels. I was there
Yeah, yeah,
and living that life. I didn't care about God. Why would I care? I was my God.
Mhm.
But now I'm on the other side of it and I've experienced it, and I know just how beautiful and rich and life fulfilling it really is.
yeah,
I mean, why would you not want that? It's hard when you're on the outside, right, to see how beautiful it is on the inside. But I would just encourage you, just like that. I mean, what could you lose, right? Just check it out. I mean, like, at the end of the day, what can you look? I mean, if there's a God who created absolutely everything and he loves you enough to die in your place, he wants to get to, I mean, why would you not want that, right?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely.
Why would you not want that kind of love in your life? And so I would just challenge them, pick up a Bible, man. Try praying. Just, what could you lose?
Take a closer look, innit? Take a closer
look. 100%. Oh, yeah.
No, certainly. Pete Very, he was on last month and he just answered with one sentence. You don't know what you're missing.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. That's the answer, innit? Go with that one, man. Definitely.
Yeah. No. I mean, they're all good. There's many answers, isn't there, that we can give, isn't there? There's many answers. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all living by faith in something, aren't we? And so, I think, I agree, Ash. Take a closer look. You might just find something that's life transforming and changing in the message of Jesus in the Bible. So yeah, absolutely, I completely affirm and agree what you've said. Okay, Ash. So some people think they need to be perfect before they can ever come to God. What would be your word to those people?
Yeah, I think you can probably tell from my story that I didn't even go to God. God came to me.
Oh, come on.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that. Come on.
Crazy. Like, I just want a little challenge. Every faith system in the world, apart from Christianity, is trying to work their way to God.
Brilliant.
They all have this set of standards, these rules, these things they need to achieve and to do to be acceptable to God. Christianity is the only faith that says that actually there's nothing that you can ever do to please God.
Right.
Like, you can't clean yourself up for him. He will clean you up. He'll take care of you. He'll make you right. Yeah, he's the one that's going to come looking for you. So you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be God. I mean, there is no good apart from God, right? That's what the Bible teaches, right? There is only one that's good, and that's God. So I would just encourage you, just take that step. Just here and now. He knows you anyway. He knows you inside and out. None of us are good. None of us are perfect. We've all made mistakes. We can never get right with God in our own strength. So I think the simple answer is that you're never going to be good enough.
Yeah.
Never.
Go on, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think, you're never going to be good enough. So don't stop trying. Stop trying to be good enough.
Yeah, just let go and let God in, man. I mean, it's right. I mean, if we're waiting for until we're good enough, we're going to be waiting a long time because we're never going to be good enough. Our righteousness is, God's a holy God, We can never reach that level, but we can reach that level through the work of Jesus Christ. And when we believe in him by faith, we put our trust in him, we live for him, we make that decision and we follow him. The Bible tells us that he credits us with the righteousness of Jesus Christ. And that is the beauty of the gospel. I'm righteous every morning I wake up because of what he did for me. And I live with that clear conscience. And I'm sure Ash does as well. I mean, Ash, you've already touched on some of it, but I mean, I remember when I was a drug addict and a criminal, I used to wake up with guilt every morning for, the pain I'd caused to my mum and dad and everybody else in life. And now I wake up with a clear conscience. And it's just, that is one of the simple things like that, the simplicity of the gospel. It's one of the greatest things, to live free from guilt. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, Ash, I got another question for you. I think this is from someone else who put this in on the chat. And to be honest, it's where I was going to finish anyway, to be honest. So it's great. What are your hopes for the future, Ash Nixon? I'm sure God's got massive plans for you in the future, but what are some of your hopes, some of your dreams, some of the stuff you envision for the future, walking hand in hand with this amazing God who's able to just do? He's already done incredible things, hasn't he?
Yeah, come on.
Israel, you're doing amazing work at Victory at Church in Cumbran. He's doing incredible things. What more do you believe God has in store for you?
Wow, it's a tough one. There's I think when you become a Christian, you learn how to dream again. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I have dreams and desires that I never ever would allow myself to have before. I think one of them is I want to see this nation wake up. I really do. I see it, like, I think once your eyes are open, you kind of see what's going on. We're so lost in this nation, so broken. I think social media has shown us just how lost we are, constantly looking for approval, looking for recognition, looking for love. You know, there's so many broken and hurting people in our world. The homelessness in our nation is rife. Drug addiction is rife. Prostitution is rife. Yeah. And there's kids now, like obviously through what's happened in our recent times, that our nation is struggling. It's really broken. And one of my desires would be that not that we become a Christian nation again, because I don't think that's the answer, but I just that people start to recognize and wake up. And my hope in that is that God would allow me to be part of that.
Yeah.
You know, he's changed my life. I said at the beginning how much of a privilege it is to do what I'm doing right now. Not only did God rescue me, but he's now allowing me to be part of somebody else's journey, so that they might hear something that causes for them to come home. And so if I can have more of that, that's what I want, man. I just want to tell people about Jesus, if I'm honest. That might be the corny Christian answer, but that's the truth. I want our nation to wake up, and I want to be part of that. I want to see people turning to Jesus.
Come on, mate. Brilliant. I love that. And do you know what I love about that as well? That those dreams and aspirations, it's not so much about you, about what you can get, about what you want to do, but it's about what you want to see God doing for other people's lives, in other people's lives, and particularly for the nation, you know, on like a mass scale. And I just love that about you. That shows that your heart for God and your heart for people, you know. I mean, a lot of times we can hear that the Christian message is a bit like, you know, the American dream, you know, like, you know, give your life to Jesus, he'll give you a wife, 2 kids, you'll have a good job, and you'll live happily ever after. But, I mean, that's not always the case, is it? But, you know, we do know that God gives us the desires of our hearts, but, you know, what does that look like? Sometimes people have to go through difficulty following Jesus. But, I mean, the main thing should be, it's not about, you know, we give our life to Jesus and you know, and we become great, but we give our life to Jesus and God becomes great in us. Because we are most satisfied when we glorify God. That's why we were created. So I love that, Ash. I think that's an incredible, you know, I aspire to have those dreams as well, that it will all be about God, that God may be the all in everyone's lives, in our nation and on the earth. Absolutely. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I'm human like everybody else, right? So yes, me and my wife are saving for our own home, right? Yeah. I like going to the gym and I like keeping fit. There's nothing that makes me feel more alive than partnering with God in the mission of God. Like it is a selfish thing, but that's when I feel alive doing it, Stephen. Like it's a blessing. Yeah, come like it's beautiful. Isn't it? When you talk to someone and you see the lights coming on.
Yeah,
and you can see them. They're coming to faith. They believe. Like what? How precious is that?
Ash, you've just ruined your story now. I made you sound all holy, and now you're making.
Yeah.
No, but it is true. I mean, this is a guy, people, right? This is a guy who was like living life in the fast lane, selling drugs in gangs and stuff, adrenaline junkie, like living that life. And now, man, he feels alive when he's talking to people about Jesus. I mean, what a transformation! This big, hard criminal. I mean, look at him. He's like a puppy. He's like you know, look at his smile, look at his grin.
Softened me. I've been softened.
That's what God can do. He can transform out. I mean, I've seen it in Teen Challenge Rehab. You get big blokes, big hardened criminals. Within a few months, they're like teddy bears, man. They've got soft hearts because this is, and that is the greatest miracle, isn't it? That God can change you like that. And I just buzz every time I look at Ash's smile. And that must be what God is doing right now, Ash, when he looks down on you. Okay, guys. Well, I mean, yeah, Ash, thanks very much, you know, for coming and sharing your story, man. I just love it, man. I think it's really encouraging. I think it's really inspiring. You know, it just makes me want to go on and do and fulfill more for God in my life, and it makes me want to be a better person and be the person who God has created me to be. And I'm sure it'll be the same for many of our viewers tonight. I just love your passion, Ash, for Jesus Christ, and I particularly love the work that you're involved in with Victory Church Cumbran. You know, you're there working with the next generation and working with people with broken lives, like drug addicts, in Victory Church's rehabilitation centre. I mean, that is a really essential work, a real need that needs to be met in our nation right now. And it's a great pandemic. You know, never mind coronavirus, drug addiction and homelessness is a severe pandemic in our nation. Okay, thanks for joining us tonight, people. If you have any questions for Ash or myself, please do feel free to contact us at Oxford Elam. Please like our Facebook page and our Instagram page at Oxford Elam, or find us on YouTube as well if you want to tune into some more content like this. Subscribe, hit the subscribe button. This has been our third show this evening. We're quite new at doing these shows, Stories with Stephen, but we have much more planned for the future. Some great stories and guest speakers coming in. Next month, we'll be having former drug addict Kelly Marsden, who will be sharing her story of transformation, how God transformed her life. Until next time, guys.